down about more freshwater stuff, but it's going to be more specific that it's going to be about freshwater in our area. North Carolina, Lexington, all that good stuff. So when we talk about water sources, so freshwater sources, where do we get our water from? Our drinking water. You don't have to answer that. There are multiple places you can get it from, depending on where you live. Most people that live within the city limits will get their water from one or maybe two companies, but it may be different than somebody who lives a little bit outside the city lines out in Davidson County. So where I get my water may be different from wherever you get your water, because I live way on the other side of Davidson County. And you'd be surprised to know that you can look up where you get your water from, and if that place has had any kind of violations, like it's been given a ticket for too much pollution or not following code or whatever. So you can actually see how safe your water is based on the government regulations. So in freshwater sources, we need to talk about where our water comes from. So the water cycle is a cycle. So it's not really a beginning, not really an end, but we'll start with rain, just because we need a place to start. So we are not short on any rain in North Carolina right now. We're good. We got rain and more rain. So when we have rain, it falls on the ground. It's got to go somewhere. It's either going to go into the ground. And what's that word called when it seeps into the ground? Well, it turns into groundwater, but what's that action called? It's that military sounding word. Infiltration. So you either have infiltration into the groundwater, which is only 0.4% of the world's water, or it's that 0.05% that's surface water. That's water you can see. That's like High Rock Lake. That's like Yadkin River. That's like the creeks. So for freshwater source, we're going to talk about some terminology, and this may seem like a, no duh type of thing. Like, I know what a river is, but, you got to be able to define it. So a river is a large natural stream. This is why you can't call that little creek running through your backyard a river. It's got to be pretty big. It's a large natural stream flowing to the sea, or a lake, or to another stream. So if you have a large flowing body of water and it's going to either the ocean, or it's going into High Rock Lake, or it's going into another river, if it's big, it's a river. Now, those rivers get their water from somewhere, and not just from the rain falling directly onto them. But when it rains, you have tiny flows of water feeding into that river. They're called tributaries. people that don't know how to use it. So I want you to think about, if you looked at a map of a river and its tributaries, so that's our river. River. When you have a river, you got to have feeder streams called tributaries. So all these little streams feed into the river and give the river all its water. Tributaries. What does this look like? It looks like a tree, right? I mean, kind of. Miss Thomas's drawing skills notwithstanding, there's our lake. So this is why a lot of time when you hear about the river branches or the branch of the river, it's because when you look at a river and its tributaries on a map, it looks kind of like trees laying down. And the limbs are the tributaries. So when it rains, what direction does water flow? If it rains on top of a hill, what happens? It goes downhill. That's gravity. Some of it will seep into the ground. Some of it will infiltrate. And then some of it will be runoff. We learned that term back on Monday. Some of it will be runoff. When you have runoff, you have the water that feeds into the tributaries, which feeds into the river. But there's actually maps that tell you where this water is going to go based on your landform. So y'all remember talking about topographical maps back in, was it 7th grade? 6th grade? Where, I know you talk about it in elementary school too, because I've seen projects come home from my kids about it. But it shows you the elevation. So it shows you like the mountains on a map and how high they are. On those maps, they can tell you based on those mountain ranges and those hills, which way the water is going to flow. That area is called watershed. Of land. My tree's blocking it. There we go. So when you have a watershed, you have a chunk of land, and because of the mountains or the hills, the way the land is shaped, that separates that area so that all the water in the around the basin flows into one place. So all the water is going to flow into those creeks. Where you going? Knowing your watershed is important because if you have a source of pollution in your watershed region, you kind of want to know about it. If you have a pig farm and it's located within your watershed area, I would want to know that because all the runoff from around that pig farm is going to end up feeding into the river and tributaries in my drinking water area. area that occurs where the watershed is at is called a river basin. So you have the land that's inside the watershed area. So you have a circle area basically showing a watershed, and all the land inside that watershed area is called the river basin. Basin means bowl. So it's like the bowl in which all the water is contained. You're not picking up yet? Once you're done writing this out, I want you to get out that little sheet of paper with the map of North Carolina on it. And I want you to see if you can figure out, looking at that map, take a guess at something, as to which river basin we are. If you have a guess, let me know. We'll see how good your geography skills are. Come on. There we go. Does anybody have a guess at which one we are? Which one? Nope, not that one. Any others? Yadkin? Anybody else? Y'all know where we are on the map? Like right around here. So if you want to shade in a mark. Oops, I messed up. I can follow the map. All that. And it's pretty much the biggest basin in North Carolina. That's 18-1. Circle it. Yadkin River Basin. That means everything in that circled area all feeds into the Yadkin River eventually. That means if there's any sources of pollution in that circled area, it will get into the Yadkin River. The Yadkin River, y'all driven over the bridges going over the Yadkin River. It's pretty big. Another big one, the Cape Fear River right here. I used to live in that area. Cape Fear River's pretty big too. Eventually those all lead to the ocean. So anything on the ground feeds into the Yaqui River, which will eventually feed into the ocean. So if you have a contaminant way up in the northern part of this basin really extends into Virginia too. It'll eventually make its way down into the river, and the river will make its way down the sea, so all the pollutants travel down with it. That's why people freak out if you say, oh, well, that pig farm or that chicken farm or whatever, it's really far north, it doesn't affect us any. It really does. Anything on the ground will eventually end up in your drinking water. Any trash, any pollutants, anything. So make sure you have that glued in to your notebook, and then we're going to do an example of how water flows into a river basin. Once you have glued in your paper, after it's been marked properly and everything, you need to clear everything off your desk. Because our activity is going to involve your desk getting wet. Alright, I need every other person, we're going to be working in pairs today, I need every other person to go to the back in that So big. All right. This website is up to date-ish. The problem right now is with the government shutdown. Places like the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, is currently not updating their website stuff because they've lost all funding to operate such things. So it's fairly up to date, and we'll use it the way we need to. So on the EPA website, you can look up your drinking water sources. You put in your zip code, it tells you, okay, in this area right here, these are our rivers and tributaries. So a lot more creeks and streams than you probably realize we have in this area. We have about 147,000 people served just in one Davidson Water Inc., which we are mostly, at this school, served by the City of Lexington water system, which serves about 19,000 people. Now, you can look up each of these water sources, and it tells you if there's been any violations, if there's any issues with where you've been drinking. So it lists right here all the violations they've had since last year. I think they keep it up here public for about a year, and then it goes into archives. So maximum contaminant level violation. So that means that there is a contaminant in our drinking water, and it's allowed to a certain point. It's considered not harmful to a certain point. And then after a certain point, you become a violation. They randomly test the water sources, and if it's too much of something that's not supposed to be in there, they give you a fine. And it's saying something acidic has been in there. It tells you what it is. And here's what really should creep you out right here, though. Maximum contaminant violation. This is back in 2009. So it's been quite a bit ago, which I'm glad about, because this is for coliform. Does anybody know what that is? It's poop bacteria. Yeah. Which, you know, it's something that is everywhere. But according to whatever test they did, they violated the maximum level of poop bacteria in the water. However, they said return to compliance, which means they fixed whatever the problem was. A lot of these nitrates, this comes from a lot of times fertilizers. If you have a lot of nitrates in the water, that means something's going on where there's too much fertilizer. This one, they just said it's there, but you're not violating it. So you can look that up for any water source you want. So that's where our drinking water providers are. Now we can look at our list for potential sources of contamination. So if I was to survey the area, nope, that's Clemens. 212. Let's see. Let's open it up to 10 miles. And as you zoom in, you can see what these sources of pollution are in our area. Anything that has a dot is a pollution in our drinking water. So something on Old Greensboro Road, does anybody know where that is? Anybody live near there? Old Greensboro Road? So they tell you that something with their permitting, which allows them to operate near a water source, they didn't do something right and they lost their permit. So something's been happening and they basically got shut down. They had 2 violations. Compost facility. Where's this one at? City of High Point, so it's north of us. This one is a potential hazard, but look at their record. Okay. So for the past several years, they've been using water from Spurgeon Creek, but they've had no violations. So though it's a composting facility, which is a big source of potential contamination to our waters, they're doing it right. Whatever they're doing, they're passing inspections each time. Come on, slow internet. This one's called waterway impairments. This means that there's something wrong with one of the water sources in our area, whether they know where it's coming from or not. So wherever Abbott's Creek is at, this is where Thomasville Water Supply gets some of their drinking water from, and there's an issue. The pollutants they detected that are too much, this feeds also, if anybody goes to Tomalette's lake to hang out, apparently they have too much chlorophyll, which I find interesting because, you know, chlorophylls in plants. So I'm like, who knew that that is too much? So what is probably happening is that there's too much algae growth probably, and it's causing the stream to not be very good use for water. So you can look this up anywhere, like around where you live, and see if there's impairments, if there's issues in the water, and this makes a great science fair project as well. is to be able to go collect water samples and do analysis on them, which is something we're gonna be doing probably next week. I mean, we're not gonna go collect it because we don't have a creek out back, unfortunately, but I will bring water to you. All right, so everybody have a partner in a blue and green, no, blue and brown marker. Work in a group of 3 if you have to, 'cause I know that. All right, what I want you to do is whenever you get your paper, I want you to rip the paper in half so that you have about